Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Bobo Challenge. And if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, the other day we were talking about the ceasefire um, in Lebanon and and Netanyahu's exuberant, triumphant celebration of the ceasefire. Basically, he's ended the two-front war that Israel has been forced to fight with Hezbollah's retreat north of the Litani River. And even as he was speaking, he issued a warning to Syria. And he said, Syria is playing with fire. And then lo and behold, within the last couple of days, the civil war in Syria that has been more or less put on the back burner for some years now has reignited with serious, massive offensives waged by the HTS, which is just simply an offshoot of ISIS, which itself is just an offshoot of Al Qaeda. It's the same bunch of Islamists that just keep giving themselves new names, and it's evidently quite a serious fight that's going on, and you have to think that this is a second front that has been opened up against Syria and against Russia. So here's just a sampling of the media coverage. And here we have the report in CNN. Syria's rebels exploit weaknesses in Iran's proxies to launch surprise offensive. And then anti-government rebels in northern Syria have launched a sudden offensive in an effort to capitalize on Israel's efforts to weaken Iran's regional proxies. After making only limited gains in recent years, they have already captured some 40 towns and villages that were controlled by government forces, as well as Syrian military base. Coming together for an anti-regime operation, rebels from various factions closed in on Syria's second largest cities, Aleppo. Aleppo has been controlled by Assad's government and pro-Iranian militias since 2016. I mean, clearly Hezbollah has been weakened, and that's had an effect on the situation in Syria. And again, Hezbollah, which the Americans are frothing at the mouth, was actually fighting against these Islamists effectively, as was, of course, Iran. So then analysts say the rebels are using a vacuum left by a weakened Hezbollah to advance in Syria. And then here we have some guy from the International Crisis Group. The rebels see an opportunity to test the front lines with Hezbollah weakened, a pressured Iran, and a Russia busy with Ukraine. The rebels were surprised by their success, and they pushed harder than they anticipated. This is Nana Hawak. The rebels see a shift in powers. And here's the BBC. It says rebel forces have launched a major offensive in northwestern Syria, capturing territory from President Bashar al-Assad's forces for the first time in years. The Islamist militant group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and allied factions said they had seized control of a number of towns and villages in Aleppo and Idlib provinces since Wednesday. The Syrian military said its forces were confronting a large-scale attack by terrorists and inflicting heavy losses on them.
Well,
So, yeah,
it's interesting. Again, in this narrative. So, these rebels are against the Assad government and against Iran. But who is supporting these Islamic groups? Okay, it's
exactly.
never mentioned. Where do they
Never.
get the arms? Who monies them?
That's
Who
right.
trains them?
Right.
Never mentioned. Never
No,
mentioned.
no,
They
yeah,
just
yeah.
they just exist.
They just exist. Exactly. Yeah. It's very interesting because again, Idlib province. Well, that's run by Turkey. Turkey is a NATO member. Why have they survived in Idlib? Well, they've survived against Idlib because Turkey has essentially threatened Syria, that if you try and take Idlib, we're going to attack you. Syria obviously can't fight against Turkey. And then the Americans, remember the time when there were threats to take Idlib? The Americans threat, and that was under Trump. The Americans threatened essentially to bomb Assad. If he did anything against Idlib. So who's protecting this enclave of jihadi terrorists?
Yeah, and also Erdogan has a dilemma on his hands because if this were this terrorist enclave were to be threatened, where would these people go? They'll go to Turkey, and that's he does not
No,
want
he does
that.
not. He does not want exactly.
He
Yeah, like
doesn't
he
want these people.
right,
Okay.
right, exactly. Um, he could, of course, unleash them on the Europeans, which he often threatens to do.
Always an option.
Always an
Always.
option. And then Idlib is the last remaining opposition stronghold, and is home to more than 4 million people, many of whom have been displaced during the conflict and are living in dire conditions.
And Idlib is the last remaining opposition stronghold. That's so anodyne, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, what this or last remaining opposition? You mean the people that cut off heads?
Exactly. Opposition. Yes, the opposition. So the leader of the
Yeah, I get
opposition.
this is just Solzhenitsyn with a Kalashnikov.
Exactly. That's right. The dissenters. It is kind of amazing that they never spell out, oh, the HTS. What is the HTS? This is a basically, this is just Al Qaeda, ISIS. They just simply give themselves new names, but it's the same bunch of people. And who's been protecting them? I mean, why has after all, they've obviously got a hell of a lot of arms because they're right on the border, and Turkey makes sure that they're kept armed and supplied. And of course, there's also the other parts of Syria that are under occupation. They don't really mention that. You've got the Kurds, who just basically set up their own autonomous province under American auspices. Of course, the Americans are there occupying Syria. And then of course
And
Israel.
and, and
Yeah,
and the rationale to keep troops in Iraq because they
exactly.
have to support the occupation of Syria.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and then the enclave is mostly controlled by HTS, but Turkish-backed rebel factions operating under the banner of the Syrian National Army and Turkish forces are also based there. But again, it's strange that they never really ask why are Turkish forces based there. I mean, were they invited in by the government in Damascus? Well, they're all Turkish forces. They're just not based there. I mean, why wouldn't they be based there? And again, even when they say the American, oh well, American forces are stationed in Syria. I mean, why are they stationed
Yeah,
in Syria?
station. Yeah, by invitation, of course, right.
That's right. Um, And then we have in 2020, Turkey and Russia, a staunch ally of Assad. They always put that in. Oh, a staunch ally of Assad. They never say about anyone else who's a staunch ally of HTS. Brokered a ceasefire to halt a push by the government to retake Idlib. That led to an extended lull in violence, but sporadic clashes, airstrikes, and shelling continued. And then last month, the UN Special Envoy for Syria warned that the wars in Gaza and Lebanon appear to be catalyzing conflict in northwest Syria in a dangerous manner. Geir Peterson said HTS carried out a significant raid into government held areas. Russia had resumed airstrikes for the first time in months, and pro government forces had significantly accelerated drone strikes and shelling.
So remember, everyone, the legal regime in Damascus wants to rid the country of foreign occupiers. That's never mentioned by the
No,
BD.
no, exactly. That's right. And then on Wednesday, HTS and its allies said they launched their offensive to deter aggression. Of course, they deter aggression and thwart enemies' plans, accusing the government and allied Iran backed militias of escalation and aggression in Northwest. There's this wonderful neutrality, the aggression in the Northwest. Basically, the government is engaging in aggression against itself. But it came as the Syrian government and its allies were preoccupied with other conflicts. And then in neighboring Lebanon, an Israeli military campaign has devastated the Iran-backed Hezbollah movement, whose fighters helped turn the tide of the Syrian civil war. Israel has also stepped up its airstrikes inside Syria on targets linked to Iran, Hezbollah, and other Iran-backed militia groups, while Russian forces are focused on the war in Ukraine. So what you're doing is Israel again is helping out the jihadis. Though no doubt we'll be told by the Israel firsters about how Israel is in the front line fighting against Islamism and Islamic terrorism. Yeah, but clearly the people who are fighting against Islamic terrorism are the ones who are targeted by Israel.
Well, I mean, considering the spigot that will never be turned off. I mean,
Right.
why isn't Israel attacking Islamists in Syria? I mean, it's a civilizational
Right, right,
conflict, isn't it? I mean, it's right on your border
right,
too.
exactly. No, yeah. No, it's never. No one ever asked that question. Um, and then at the end of the first day of the offensive, the rebels had advanced into western Aleppo countryside, taking them within 10 kilometers from the outskirts of Aleppo, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. It reported that they had seized the Syrian army's 46 they had seized the Syrian army's 46 regiments base and at least 8 villages. And then on Thursday, the monitoring group said the rebels had cut the M5 highway between Aleppo and the capital, Damascus. And then this observatory said 121 rebels, most of them members of the HTS, 40 government troops, and 21 militiamen had been killed over the past 2 days. And then again, the rebels said in the telegram statement that they had seized the town of Khan Asai, which is 5 kilometers west of Aleppo city, and had killed more than 200 members of pro-government forces. And then the Syrian military statement said its forces had confronted the terrorist attack that is still ongoing with various weapons and in cooperation with friendly forces, leaving heavy losses in equipment and so on.
Oh, so many words, so many
It's not
words.
sort of words.
But where's Israel in all of
That's
this?
right. And then look who makes their appearance. Oh, the white helmets. Meanwhile, the Syrian civil defense, whose first responders are known as the white helmets, said on Thursday the Syrian and Russian warplanes had struck a residential neighborhood. Of course, residential neighborhood, yeah. And shops in the opposition-controlled town of Atareb, 20 kilometers west of Aleppo, killing 14 civilians, including 3 children and 2 women. So they always get the white helmets in to make their propaganda points. It also reported that 4 civilians had been killed in Darat Izza. Another civilian was hit by a rocket attack on a camp for displaced people near Bab al Hawa, crossing on the Turkish border. And then here we have the Financial Times. Attack, Syrian rebels launch major offensive against Bashar al-Assad's regime. Again, rebels. They're the rebels.
So
The heroic
we
rebels.
have opposition, we have rebels, we have
Yeah,
this, um, you know,
that's right.
what
They're
they are.
rebels. They want to provide, for their people.
Well,
Unexpected advance towards Aleppo aims to capitalize on increased pressure on Damascus. And then Syrian Islamist rebels have launched their biggest offensive in years against President Bashar al-Assad's forces, capturing at least 15 villages and killing a senior Iranian commander as they surged towards the city of Aleppo.
and this is a good thing, right?
Exactly. In the first serious challenge for 4 years to Assad and his backers, Russia and Iran, militants advanced eastward from the remaining Syrian opposition-held region of Idlib, which has been in a state of stalemate since Moscow and Ankara agreed to ceasefire in 2020.
So in two paragraphs, we go back, George, just real
Hmm.
quick. So at the top, we have Islamist rebels. The
Yep,
second one, we have
yep,
militant.
that's right. That's right. Um, and then it says HDS, the ruling militant group in northwestern Syrian region, is listed as a terrorist organization by the U.S. State Department. But of course, we all know that they list things as terrorist organizations, but they nonetheless support them. You know, you basically facilitate everything that they do, but you give yourself cover by listing them as a terrorist organization.
It means they're not invited to the buffets.
Exactly, exactly. The territory held by HTS and other factions has been the last remaining patch of opposition-held land. So we have it's the opposition. Since Assad, backed by Iran and Russia, crushed the rebellion that grew out of the country's 2011 popular uprising.
Which wasn't popular.
It wasn't popular. The media office of HDS's Syrian Salvation government claimed that the militants had taken 100 square kilometers of territory since launching the attack. And then the advance shows how the balance of power between forces in civil war racked Syria has been altered by a year of conflict in the wider Middle East. While Assad brutally crushed Syria's armed uprising, he
Okay.
is under pressure.
Well, Financial Times, I mean, while Assad brutally crushed Syria's armed uprising, well, that's what the state does
Right.
against,
It does,
it
and has
does.
since time immemorial. Yeah,
Well,
I mean, yes,
okay,
yes.
I don't know who writes these
You're
things.
right. You're absolutely right. The same people who talk about Trump's insurrection. We have to crush the insurrection, but apparently he brutally put down the armed uprising. He's under pressure on multiple fronts and presiding over a shattered nation that has become an arena for great power competition.
How did that happen, George? Okay. How
How
did
did
that?
that? Yes. How did that happen? Well, exactly. But they never talk about that. How did that happen?
Who shattered the nation?
Who shattered it?
Okay.
It never said, well, 2011. Now, what happened after 2011? Ah, yes, the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton started transporting arms from Libya into Syria. Now, why did they do that? Why would they transport arms from Libya after having bombed Libya into submission? They start transferring arms and militants from Syria, from Libya into Syria. Why would they do that? But that's never mentioned. And John Kerry's admission, yeah, we were seeking to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. He said it. And then, well, yeah, but that never appears. It's just, oh, there's great power competition. Was it no great power
Oh
competition?
no.
Yeah,
John Kerry's admission is that they wanted a black flag over Damascus.
yes,
That's what they wanted.
exactly.
Okay. And they still have plenty of people that will do their bidding there.
That's right.
Today.
And then they saved Idlib. They went and saved it. I mean, you might that time when they made that threat uh, to take Idlib, Erdogan, he went to the United Nations and started pleading about, oh my God, they're going to attack Idlib. And all the usual suspects, the British and the Americans, all basically supported Erdogan and threatened Syria with, with serious consequences if they tried to take Idlib. Tehran-backed militia groups and Russian forces have propped up Assad's regime, propped it up, while Turkey has backed rebels in the last bastion of opposition-held territory, and a small number of U.S. troops remain in eastern Syria to support the fight against ISIS,
They haven't been doing for years.
which they don't do. They haven't done it, but a small number, and it's just this fight against ISIS, which is completely non-existent, and they haven't do it. But it's just a small number, just small. And but which is there, why are you there? Oh, well, we're fighting against ISIS. Oh, okay, well, that's fine. So what are you doing? I'm fighting against ISIS. Oh,
Well, everybody, there was no such thing as ISIS before the U.S. invaded Iraq in
right.
2000.
That's
So I
right.
mean, this is, you know, Why is there? Why could there be ISIS in Syria? Because Americans are there.
Exactly. And it's wonderful because no one ever inquires into it about, well, because that's the Americans' excuse. Why are you occupying um, Syria? You're not there by invitation of the Syrian government. You're not there by invitation of the United Nations. So what exactly are you doing in Syria? Oh, we're fighting against ISIS. Oh, well,
Yeah,
that's
but so is the Assad government is fighting ISIS. So why doesn't the United States help Assad
yeah, and that's
fight
exactly
ISIS?
it. Why doesn't it help? And that's like, and of course, Iran and Hezbollah were fighting against ISIS.
And
These are the
Soleimani
people.
was the greatest killer of people like us.
Yeah, that's right. So they're the enemy. They're the enemy is of course Iran and Hezbollah. That's and Assad and the Russians. In other words, all the people who are fighting against ISIS. Those are the people that you're against, and you want to persuade the world that you're fighting ISIS. And the media just repeat this. They just absolutely repeat this without any question. The Israeli military has been striking weapons depots and Iran linked militants in Syria regularly since Palestinian militant group Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th last year. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday warned Assad that he's playing with fire. So he
So,
warns him on
so
Tuesday,
yeah,
and then
so
Wednesday,
so said the arsonist. Yeah.
exactly. So said the answer is. What a surprise. He says it on Tuesday, and Wednesday, suddenly they launch this offensive. For the Syrian rebels, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Again, this is the person, guy in the crisis group. When else are you going to ever get the world, the US and Israel, and everyone else going after their rivals? Well, that doesn't come about by accident. I mean, he says this as if somehow, an accident. No, this is a deliberate policy. They did this in 2011 and 2012, and they restarting this again. Um, the Syrian rebels began their offensive the day after Israel agreed to cease fire with Hezbollah, following 2 months of intense airstrikes and an invasion of southern Lebanon. Again, it's very interesting. They say these 2 months of airstrikes on Syria. Has Syria attacked Israel? I mean, is that has Syria done anything other than, of course, it had to sit on its hands because Israel stole land from Syria, which supposedly the Europeans are upset. Right? Golan Heights, according to UN Resolution 242, Golan Heights belongs to Syria. We strongly oppose this violation of Resolution 242, and yet, strangely enough, the Europeans do nothing about it. They just sort of said, well, hey, they annexed the Golan Heights. Well, okay, what's next? The offensive all comes despite signs of a potential rapprochement between Ankara and Damascus, with Turkey's President Erdogan in July saying he hoped to meet Assad for the first time in more than a decade. Turkey controls a swathe of northern Syria that extends beyond Idlib and contains smaller rebel factions. Well, Erdogan, you don't want to believe anything Erdogan says. He's always just sniffing out his opportunities. But the rebel advance also suggested that Ankara judged its efforts to revive relations with Damascus had stalled. And then so it appears that the understanding was in Ankara that normalization has failed, and they gave the green light for this offensive. This is some Turkish academic. So what this tells us is that the ceasefire in Lebanon, which was no question as a setback for Hezbollah, has now been seized on by Israel, by Israel's de facto allies, by America's de facto allies, to make another push for against Damascus and give the Russians headaches once again in Syria.
It also proves an important point is that Hezbollah played a very important role
Right.
in fighting Islamic terrorism in Syria. And now, obviously, they are very much preoccupied. And this is no coincidence. They want to pick up the baton where they left it off, this
Right.
time without the effective fighting force of Hezbollah. Hezbollah gave blood a lot in
Yep.
Syria.
Right.
It's underestimated. They did a lot. in fighting Islamic terrorism. And now they're on the back foot, obviously, and so this is an opportunity. We had Vanessa Beeley on not too long ago, and she predicted this. She said the new front is Syria. She's right.
Right. Exactly. It's a new front. Um, and it's very interesting that here they are. In the media, they're reporting in this very neutral way about the
Neutral.
advance
It's
of these,
vacuous.
these
It's not even
jihadis.
neutral, it's vacuous.
Yes, and these are the head choppers. These are the head choppers who are making these advances, and all Iran is a setback for Iran, and Damascus. You're basically facilitating the head choppers. And oh well, it's good. Russia's setback for Russia, so that's a good thing for us. Yes, and but it's clear that this is how they plan on reorganizing the Middle East. And these people, these Mike Waltz and the rest of them who are coming into power, they are absolutely gung ho. I mean, we remember them from the days of the height of the Syrian war. They're absolutely determined to get Bashar al-Assad out. I think will restart that whole regime change war in Damascus. And
Yes,
again,
well, and also, I mean, again, this is part of the game plan, is that, um, uh, focusing the attention against the evil Assad, Putin's best friend in the Middle East,
right,
as the genocide continues in
right,
Gaza.
right,
Very convenient, very convenient. Okay. Well, the Israelis and Hezbollah licked their wounds. A new front is opened up to, again, change the narrative, change what we're
right,
talking about. And we're talking about it, so it's succeeding.
right,
Um, but I mean, this reordering, this is something George and I have talked about ever since the infamous day of October 7th. This is an opportunity for many to reorganize the entire Middle East. And the steam for that project it hasn't abated at all.
right. No, I think that's right, and it's very interesting because, of course, Syria has always been part of the rejectionist front. From Israel's and Americans' perspective, it's a small country, but nonetheless, it's a great nuisance. It's something that's a problem for them. Uh, and Israel, has taken land from Syria. And Syria continues to make this claim. You have stolen land from us, land that is, according to UN resolutions, belongs to us. And therefore, it's a daily living reminder to Israel of its violations of international law.
It's interesting though, and George and I can very easily remember it. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, if you're 25, then it was a long time ago. But Syria was a power broker in the Middle East. Now it's a shell of
Yeah,
itself. Okay,
right,
it's amazing. I mean, they controlled Lebanon.
right.
Okay,
They controlled Lebanon, and even before that, when Egypt and Syria kind of created a joint state in the great days of Nasser. It was the United Arab Republic, and in fact, it was the Israeli constant provocation against Syria that really triggered the 1967 war. And again, Israel did this deliberately. It continued deliberately to attack Syria, thus forcing, which is what Israel is very good, thus forcing Nasser to have to do something, because ultimately this was a humiliation for Nasser that he wasn't really doing anything to help Syria, which is part of his this joint state. So Syria has been absolutely at the heart of of the Middle East for a long time. And again, the relationship with Russia goes all the way back. I think in 1971 or 72, when the Soviet Union and Syria signed their friendship treaty, which has lasted through the Cold War and into to the present day. And that's again, Russia has bases there, has a port there. That's something that Americans do not want. That because Syria is essentially the means whereby Russia maintains a presence in the Middle East. So Syria is always something that you can keep stirring at appropriate moments.
so it's very much part of the fray. That's why this conflict is we just it'll simmer on until there's another climax. I mean, again, many people and smart people, I think, believe that Iran will retaliate against Israel. So, for the last retaliation. So now Syria is in the fray, but it's broken. It's a shell of itself. And of course, this is going to put pressure on the Russians will they abandon their ally? I
Well,
mean,
they
this is
can't. I mean, exactly, because it is their ally. I mean, Syria goes down, you lose your position in the Middle East. I mean, that's a given. So the Russians can't abandon Syria. So yeah,
so.
absolutely. It's we're always going to open up a second front for you. I mean, that's how the West operates. Yeah, now got an opportunity to open up and put Russia into a very difficult position.
And also put Iran because Syria is very important to Iran because it's a very important foothold. And the Iranians are Persians primarily, and Syria is their foothold into the Arab
Right.
Muslim world. So it's very important to them, and that's why it's all happening right now. This is like a bad dream I'm remembering because
Yeah, exactly. We thought we'd kind of forgotten about this,
all this is
Aleppo and all
coming
this. It's
back.
coming back. Exactly. I felt that as well. It's like, wow, we're talking about Aleppo again. That is so
When was
2016.
Aleppo liberated? Because I remember 2016,
Yeah,
Brexit, Trump, Aleppo. I made
Aleppo.
a
Yeah,
program on that.
yeah. That's right. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. No, I also remember, and remember those because it was in December 2016, and then there were these photographs on Twitter, the celebrating Christmas in Aleppo, and it was this lovely sight, these little children wearing Santa costumes, and you think, civilization has returned to Aleppo. The head choppers have
Yeah,
been.
but I had people on my program saying this, because I just said that they're celebrating Christmas in Aleppo, and we've seen the pictures here. And one of my guests said, "And you think that's a good idea?" I said, "Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's a defeat for
yeah,
your side."
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, yeah, well, the can of worms is open again. We're going to be talking about this, and it's
Yep,
very important for the reasons that
yep,
George just enumerated. It's very
right,
important to keep in mind what's going on in Syria.
yep.
In many places, many ways, it's like the center of the chessboard.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, everybody, this is the Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. This is Friday. We reconvene on Sunday, and then we'll do our live stream on Monday.
That's right. So Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, please join us. Come, with all the questions. We like meaty questions that challenge us. So in the meantime, this tip jar situation,
Grim.
it's very, very grim. And these dogs, they don't like being grim. So we've got to calm them down a little bit. You have a few bob in your pocket, whip them out, dunk them into the tip jar. Anything stuck behind the cushion into the tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology, and above all, this grimness will one day maybe come to an end. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye.